All right, folks, so I think it's time to talk about the week coming up and also, well, I don't know whether to call the week coming up. Let's just talk about the next few days. Last video that I did sort of provided a summary of, not only did it talk about Mercury retrograde, but it also talked about transits that by now have, excuse me, still coughing, ended or are winding down. And I want to look ahead about a week or so, but really we're going to talk about the full moon that's occurring within 48 hours at this point in time in the sign of Cancer. What do we know? And if you want more details on what I'm going to share over the next couple of minutes, please look at my last video, and from there you can go to the last video and the last video if you want to catch up, essentially. So what do we know at this point in time? What we know is that Venus transited the sign of Capricorn for much of December, and Mercury followed soon after. I think Venus entered, actually no, Mercury entered on December the 6th and Venus entered on December the 10th. Yes, I got that, into Capricorn. Mercury entered December 6th, Venus entered December the 10th. I've talked about the fact that between them, Mercury and Venus may have, in the sign of Capricorn, provided an entry into some kind of portal into the new year. It doesn't have to be a huge, or actually, because, you know, it's happening in a sign where, yes, Mercury is currently retrograde, but it's not a sign in which an eclipse is taking place. It's not a sign where they're dramatic, well, there's one dramatic transit with Pluto still in Capricorn. But whatever the nature of an infusion of a new kind of energy that may have built on the transits in Sagittarius that happened before the transits in Capricorn. Sagittarius is a sign before Capricorn. And when we had a new moon in Sagittarius, gosh, in late November, just before Thanksgiving, I talked about how there were heavy transits all around, but the Sagittarius sign provided a lightness and an opening that then when we talked about the new moon in Capricorn and the various transits in Capricorn, we talked about how that opening, that portal, that line, that thing that would carry you through all these heavy transits could start to become solidified, concretized, Capricornized. How does it translate into something financial, something real? Is it a job offer? Is it what possibility is it? And as I said, it does not have to be big, but it could distinctly be that. Possibilities imply positivity, but sometimes they can be something more challenging. They can imply an ending, but that in itself creates an opening. So again, I'm not going to dwell on this a lot because we have a few videos in the past few videos that talk about this, and you can go back and look at those. But the bottom line is something starts to become concretized and offer starts to make its presence felt. We have Venus and Mercury in Capricorn. The Sun enters Capricorn around the 18th, 19th, 20th of December, and we go smack into the new moon in Capricorn, which is the new moon that we are currently under till the new moon in Aquarius occurs around January the 22nd, 21st, 22nd. So we're very much developing this Capricorn theme of events. However, after this December expansion, I'll call it that, and concretization occurred, Mercury, bam, on the 29th of December, went retrograde. And I am interpreting that as if you want to avail of this portal or this through line that introduces 2023 to you, then there is work that needs to be done to settle things, manage things, arrange things, observe things, learn things with Mercury retrograde. While on a mundane level, you hear about all sorts of travel mishaps and technology mishaps and it taking 10 times longer to print something or send something or miscommunications and snafus. On a higher level, I find that Mercury retrogrades provide information that has been missing for us so far. And then that allows us to take that into account and redesign things and move forward accordingly. So Mercury retrogrades can also provide a pause. They can create a Mercury retrograde can slow down the kind of acceleration that we may have been experiencing in December for reasons that seem mysterious to us, but again, provide an ability or an opening to arrange things and manage things so that once Mercury goes direct, and it's a as you head towards, it's already January the 4th, so in 2 weeks' time, as you head towards January the 19th, when Mercury goes direct, right after that the Sun goes into Aquarius, and right after that we have a new moon in Aquarius. And as we head into late January and even into February, with a direct Mercury and the planets then transiting Aquarius, you have, with the personal planets, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, the Venus is already in Aquarius. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. You have, things start to accelerate again after January 19th, 20th, 21st, into the last week of January and into February. And we have the opportunity to move forward on that same path that we were on December, with one important condition. And I will talk about this in my next video, but I'm going to mention it here. One important transit. Venus is now done with Capricorn and is in Aquarius. She's the first of the personal planets between Mercury, Venus, the Sun, and to some extent Mars, to enter Capricorn just before the Sun is going to, on the 20th, 21st of January. And so this is all, the Aquarius transits are a topic for my next video, because I am going to talk about the full moon in Cancer, really. But on the 20, where is this? It's on the 22nd of January. On the 22nd of January, Venus in Aquarius conjuncts Saturn in Aquarius. And that, in a sense, as I've said, the 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, if you want to think of it this way, it's like if you're getting ready to board some sort of a plane, it's those days that you have to, as you head to those days, you have to contend with in order to be able to get onto the boarding corridor, to get onto the plane, so to speak. And those days will test you to ensure, with Venus conjuncting Saturn, that you really are taking advantage of the opportunity and the portal that is opening, and not falling into past patterns that Saturn has been trying to help you evolve from and take seriously over the past couple of years in the sign of Aquarius. Okay, topic for next video, but I want to mention this right now, so that as you are going through Mercury retrograde and paying attention to keeping a bigger picture view of what developed in December, that you're going to keep walking that path into February and March. If it feels right to you, then you have to look at this Mercury retrograde period as a time when you're observing what is coming up that may need to be dealt with in order to allow you to get onto that. So there may be a need to be in action to organize things on a bigger way, and there may not be clarity. The path may not be clear yet, but the actions will allow you to see which doors will open and which doors will not. There will be a need to, and this is probably happening already, you observing where other key stakeholders are as you arrange your life and start to move forward in 2023. Where are they at? What are they thinking? What do they want? What's going to work for you? What's not going to work for you? How do you do this dance of alignment with everybody in order to board that plane, so to speak, and move forward? The reason why the Capricorn transit, again, in summary, is important is because it aligns so powerfully with the North Node in Taurus, where we are meant to develop. So whatever's occurring has a positive or a supportive relationship with what we're meant to develop and grow in the Taurus part of our chart. But also relevant for today's video, these transits square Chiron in Aries. And with Chiron, yes, we talk about healing, but I would encourage you to think of it more like a kind of detoxing. And detox and healing have become very light words, healing. And they are, and for anyone who has had to heal, I mean, you guys, people who've been watching this, know that I had COVID and I'm still coughing. I tested positive on December the 6th. I tested negative on December the 25th. Here it is on cue. It is still healing, if you have even heavier things, surgeries or knee replacements, or you're dealing with something much more, it is not, it is reconstructive. It is a removal of what is not working. It is healing is let's just think about the Chiron transit in Aries as sort of a removal of toxicity, of long-term deep-seated toxicity. So the healing process is not rainbows and daisies. It is an exposure to the wound that needs to be cleaned, detoxed, patched up. Ugh, sorry to get so graphic, but to start to be reconstructed so that you can move forward psychologically and emotionally from whatever that is that needs to be healed from in the Aries part of the chart. And these transits in Capricorn create tension with that healing, so that you have to avail of the Capricorn energies to facilitate that healing in the Aries part of your chart. Now, Venus squared Capricorn as it trined the node in Uranus in Taurus through its transit in Capricorn. Mercury has trined the North Node in Uranus and Taurus and squared Chiron once. It is now retrograde, so it's going to square Chiron again, trine Uranus and the North Node, and then after it goes direct on the 19th, it's going to do the same thing for the third time. The Sun trined Uranus and the North Node in Taurus, squared Chiron in Aries, and so these transits are going on. This full moon in the sign of Cancer, the opposite sign of Capricorn, there are two key transits. One is that this retrograde Mercury in Capricorn, at the time of the full moon, is getting ready to conjunct the Sun with the full moon opposite it. So the full moon, in some way, when Mercury is this close to the Sun, it is considered combust. And Mercury retrograde challenges peak 3 times. One when Mercury is going retrograde, one when Mercury is going direct, and one when Mercury is really close to the Sun, like it is now. Because when a planet is close to the Sun, conventionally we would say that its powers are diminished. It is sort of eclipsed by the Sun. I think that the Mercury retrograde with the Sun, when planets conjunct the Sun, I think of them as somehow being in communion with your soul, with your higher intelligence. And so they're going through this kind of cleansing process. They are in communication with what your higher self knows, the planet of communication and cognition. And there's some information that passes between the two, but particularly between the Sun and Mercury. And then the retrograde Mercury, it's an important conjunction because it also sets up a communication cycle in the sign of Capricorn till the next Mercury retrograde that's going to occur in Taurus. So for the next 3 odd months, communications around cognition, around the Capricorn part of our chart, are going to be one of the key themes that are going to be occurring. So an agenda is being set here, but this, in the cycle of Mercury retrograde, the Mercury-Sun conjunction offers a kind of midpoint. It's not technically a midpoint, it's happening about a week after the Mercury went retrograde, and we have 2 more weeks to go, but it's an important milestone. And you'll sense the difference as Mercury clears the Sun. Now, let me go through some transits. On the 2nd of January, 2 days ago, the Sun did square Chiron, and Venus entered Aquarius. On the 5th, tomorrow, the Sun trines Uranus. When the Sun trines and squares, it's not nearly as yang a transit as, say, Mercury trining or squaring or Venus trining or squaring. With the Sun, it is very much an illumination and an internal illumination. Wherever the Sun goes, it acts as this massive spotlight. And it is I find with the Sun, it is a much more internal, knowing, higher self. I mean, people will talk about the Sun as being your soul. Higher self seems to be a more, for me, precise way of describing this. It's an awareness. And so as the Sun now gets ready to trine Uranus, again, an awareness of opportunity and liberation and growth in the Taurus part of the chart, and what the Capricorn part of the chart and the developments in November and particularly December offer there. On the 6th, Day after tomorrow, we have the full moon in Cancer. On the 7th, the retrograde Mercury conjuncts the Sun. On the 8th, the retrograde Mercury trines Uranus. It's second trine to Uranus. On the 9th, Venus in Aquarius trines Mars. All these trines, all this awareness of potential with a Mercury retrograde. The table is being set and the pressure is felt, and the awareness is there that to avail of the opportunities on the table, a certain amount of work needs to be done. There's a murkiness to the work because we don't completely know. Things are not yet out in the open to know what we have to contend with. So we are doing this dance between our own actions to align with whatever is opened up. And we're also playing a little bit of defense around our intuitive awareness. I'm coming to the full moon. Our intuitive awareness of what might be going on and how to deal with it in order to avail of these opportunities. I will say, and I'll develop this in the next video, when we get to the 10th and 11th of January, and we get to Mars going direct on the 12th, we are in some more challenging, the challenge is felt. The challenge is felt. So when we sort of get to a week from now. But let's now come back to this full moon. Full moon brings an awareness, brings an illumination of sorts, brings a heightening in the part of the chart where it occurs. Where does Cancer sit in your chart? What house does it occupy? What does that house stand for? That is being emotionally and intuitively illuminated. Not in a way that brings intellectual clarity, but either something is being spotlit and you're being pushed into the limelight in some way temporarily. If it's happening in your 11th house, you could find yourself really active on social media, and a lot of your friends in your community could be praising you, or you could find that you're having a birthday. You know, there's a temporary visibility. If it's a career, it could mean an offer. It could mean something comes to a culmination. There are positive associations with full moons as well. On a more challenging side, it brings emotional flare-ups. I talk about the wave that's been developing for 2 weeks now, crashing to the shore. It's an energetic peak. So what is this? And the transits could not be clearer. Retrograde Mercury and the Sun are almost exact. The full moon is opposite, and the full moon, on its way to becoming full, so over the next 48 hours, squares Chiron in Aries. So, we've been talking about an intuitive awareness of what might stand to block us in moving forward into greener pastures in 2023. And what the correlation of these opportunities is and the actions that we need to take to avail of these, and how they could facilitate this detoxification and healing in the Aries part of the chart. This full moon may bring a certain amount of intuitive and emotional awareness to a head in the form of something, because it is opposite of Mercury retrograde, something not, excuse me, something not moving forward, obstacles, delays. And whatever the murkiness is, you may, over the next 2 days, become much clearer about what actions need to be taken to smooth your way moving forward. You may find, I'm not going to say that by next week or right immediately after the full moon, you're going to be sending off the emails and talking to people and all that kind of stuff, although you could. When a planet is retrograde, that first meeting with the sun in that time period is much more introspective. When it clears the sun and it's still retrograde, the energy starts to become more yang. And then it goes direct again, as it will on the 19th, and things start to roll forward more as you head towards the end of January. So it's a flare-up. It's a flare-up. And it's a necessary flare-up because we're dealing with Mercury, with Mercury retrograde. We were dealing with murky energies we're longing for clarity that is likely in with this kind of astrology not to be there. And it's an intuitive and emotional flare up as we head over the next 48 hours around a kind of do or die attitude towards whatever it is that needs to be detoxified or healed in the Aries part of the chart. And in its own way, this kind of intuitive and emotional clarity, flare-ups, spotlight, wave crashing to the floor or the shore, I think will, as you head past the full moon and into the weekend, I think you will find yourself a lot more decisive and a lot clearer about what the risks and the dangers are that might prevent you from moving forward into 2023 in a veil of opportunities towards greater liberation, towards greater progress that feel intuitively right. And I think that you will move past this full moon with a clearer idea of what you need to do in order to clear the path. It's like a spotlight on the path, and you may not know for certain 100%, but you're going to feel clearer and surer about what it is that needs to be done to clear that path. And once that retrograde Mercury clears, and as we head into the middle of next week, we're bound to run into some challenges that start that process. Things are going to become more yang and perhaps combative as we head into the next couple of weeks. Okay, I will leave it at this. I've told you what other transits are occurring. They're mostly positive and mostly opportunistic in a certain sense. An awareness of the opportunity, an awareness of what is at stake, an awareness of the fact that we are not yet getting on the plane, but there's stuff that needs to be done. And with this full moon, an awareness of what it is that stands in our way. We may not be completely clear about it from a Mercury perspective in our minds. We may not see it visibly, but it's going to be a different kind of clarity that will set the agenda for how it is that you feel you need to move forward and where it is that you feel you need to take your stand over the next couple of weeks. I will leave it at that. If you found this useful, share it. A video on Aquarius transits to follow. Like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, click on the bell icon and the wiggly bell on top to be notified whenever I do new videos, and we'll continue to do this. Thank you. Take care.